welcome back to a new video. Today something exciting is happening because I'm going to be trying something different. It's still kind of a light box, but I'm basically going to be trying to make a light box but color in every single layer with color, line art, shading, everything to try to create more of like a picture, like a 3D picture thing. And yeah, I'm just going to try that. See how it goes. Hopefully it goes good. So as you can see, I went for this like ancient Egyptian type temple thing because I've never done this before and I didn't want the pressure of trying to copy something accurately. So I came up with my own design, and I have this thing where I have a vision in my brain, and then when I try to execute it, I hate it every single time and I give up because I just don't like it. And that's what happens with this too. But for now, everything was going good. Everything was great. I was liking the sketch. I got this idea from The Mummy because I watched it with my parents, and I was liking this so far. So I started on the snake because this was one of the main elements and I really wanted to make sure it looked good. So I sketched it out. I looked at a bunch of references to make sure I got the shape right and the way the snake is. And then I just go in with some colors, and I really wanted the snake to pop. I wanted it to be kind of like this reddish color which contrasts with the sand. And I just went in with a lot of layers of color to try to build that up. And I go in with my pen and do some line work afterwards. Basically, I just go over all the lines I drew with my pencil, and yeah, that's kind of it for this. Also, I am using watercolor for this because I don't really have other art supplies, which I know watercolor isn't the best because it's water and it's gonna warp the paper, but I really like watercolor and this was my only option, kind of, so that's why I'm using it. And I cut it out while it still looks very, very simple. I decided to cut everything out before I add any details just so I could get a good look at how it's gonna look layout wise and everything. So that's why there's not many details on this right now. And once I was done, I just took a step back, looked at it, and I hated it. I just hated it so much. I thought it was so ugly. I didn't like how it looked at all. And normally I would have given up on this at this point. This is where I would have been like, I'm done, like, I don't like it. But this time I decided that I'm gonna push through and I'm going to actually complete it whether I like it or not, because I don't want to just give up on everything that I do. So even though I was hating it, I kept going. And I just finished up the snake. As you can see, I put the snake over 3 different layers because I just wanted it to look like it had a lot of depth and the back of the snake was more in the background. And I guess now's a good time to talk more about my idea for this. So I had the design idea that I wanted like an Egyptian temple, and I also really like the thought of like a guardian, like mythical creature guarding like a temple or like some ancient place, I guess. And I was debating between a giant snake or a giant scorpion, and as you can see, I decided to go with the snake because I don't know, I just thought the snake would look cooler and it would be easier than trying to figure out how a scorpion would look that big. But yeah, I just went with the snake, and I had the idea also that I wanted a little grave robber person who was searching for the treasure inside this ancient temple of like the gods or something, and he encounters this giant snake guardian that guards the entrance, and he has to fight it in order to get to the treasure, and yeah, just stuff like that. So that's the idea I really liked, and that's what I'm trying to do. And yeah, and now I move on to the actual temple, and let me tell you now, do not get attached to this. I do not end up keeping it. But anyways, I decided that I wanted to add some nice colors into this to just add some vibrancy, so I added blue stripes and red stripes. And basically, I saw on a bunch of pictures that I looked up that they had a lot of like slanted out like pieces of the wall, I guess, on a lot of the temples. So that's what I tried to do here, and it doesn't really look that good. So that's why I end up redoing it. Again, I was just feeling really discouraged about this. I wasn't liking this. And I just drew some hieroglyphs on there. They're probably not accurate, but At this point, I was just not feeling it at all. I really wanted to give up, but like I said, I kept going. So, and since I was not liking this, I decided to go in and add the details onto the snake now in hopes that it would kind of lift my spirits a bit and give me new like motivation to keep going because it would look good. So I just go in, I start adding in like some details like the scales, I guess. Are they scales? Or like the texture of the snake's skin. Um, Basically, I just try to draw diamonds across the whole entire thing. And it was a little tricky because the snake curves a lot. So I had to make sure to go around it and keep the shape pretty like distinguishable. But I think I did okay at it, and then I just took a pencil. I think this was just the dark brown colored pencil, and I just go and add some shading to all the scales, and I think it looked definitely a lot better. I was happier with it. I was feeling more encouraged now, and this is kind of a point where I started feeling better about it. And yeah, so that was good for me. Alright, so now it's time to move on to the little grave robber character. And if I'm being honest, I'm not good at drawing people. I hate drawing people. I've never actually tried to draw a person. I don't like the idea of it. It just doesn't appeal to me, and I don't even know where to begin when it comes to trying to draw people. So this was really intimidating and hard. But I looked up a ton of reference photos, just trying to figure out what I could copy from what picture and what pose I could do that matched what I wanted and all that kind of stuff. And I think I did okay. And after a couple failed attempts and ugly attempts, I think I drew a pretty okay looking character. Of course, it's not super detailed or super like realistic or anything, but I think for my first attempt at a human, it's not horrible. It could have been definitely a lot worse. And yeah, I added a lot of details, or at least I tried to. And I didn't want to draw a head, so I gave him a hood. But yeah, I just try going for very muted colors, except for that little sash. I wanted to incorporate some red and blue into it, so it would tie into the temple in the back. So I just did that for that, and then I just used my pen for some line art, and basically that's it. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this looks, and it gave me another boost of confidence that I needed. And I was looking at this, and I really wasn't liking how the temple was looking. It didn't look how I wanted it to at all. So my dad gave me a good idea. He suggested that I actually make some three-dimensional pieces and glue them in to make it look three-dimensional because I wanted like the slanted walls. And he said it really didn't look like that. So I took his advice and I tried making the slanted wall pieces. He even like drew a little, not drew, but he made a little template that I could use, and yeah, I just do that. I make three of them because things are good in the number three, so I chose three, and I basically just trace that template he gave me three times, and I add the color now, basically the same color as for the sand, because I want it to match, and yeah. And to add more detail to the temple, I draw some hieroglyphs on the post. And the only regret about this is I wish I would have made them smaller and added more of them to make it look more like detailed. I don't know. Because they look good, but they just look very simple. Like the hieroglyphs look too big, but I looked at references and they have sometimes big hieroglyphs on the temples, but I just thought the smaller would have looked a lot better and more detailed. But as you can see, I just draw them on with pen, and then I use my knife actually, and I cut them, like, I cut along the lines I drew for the hieroglyphs, because originally I wanted to make this a light box and a shadow box, like in one, so like during the day you would have the colored version, and then if you turn LEDs on, it would be a normal light box, but that didn't end up working out, so yeah. And now for this ugly layer that got rejected. Basically, I just knew that I could use this for something because I still like the top part of it. So I just cut out the ugly part, the red part that didn't work well, and I just used this layer. And now it was time to assemble everything. Basically, I just glued the little three-dimensional pieces together because there's a part I had to glue. And now this layer here, this is what those like post things are gonna go onto. This is what I'm gonna glue them onto. And as you can see, I just add the color, and basically the parts I color are going to be between the pillars, and I wanted a little door there, and I wanted that red stripe to continue along the whole entire wall. So I added the red stripe there as well, and I had to cut slits along those vertical lines to be able to like attach the pieces, because I made a little tab that would slide in there and then I could glue it on the back. So that's what I did basically, and I think it looks pretty good. Yeah. And this layer is pretty flimsy because of all the cuts in it, so I end up going in with some tape off camera and just taping up the back to secure some things. And up next, I'm just drawing in some hieroglyphs onto that part with the blue. And basically, yeah, I just picked some random hieroglyphs. I'm not too picky on which ones I choose. And I just use my pen and draw those on. And it's pretty simple. And then I just go in and I decide to add a couple more foreground layers, just some sand and some walls of the canyon and some rocks here and there, just so it looks better, and I just add more depth and detail, yeah. And now I go in and start adding more details in the colors and everything to the whole light box, since I only did a flat coat of every color in the beginning. So I go in and I decide I want to shade all the pillars, and I want it to look like they're casting shadows onto the sand. So I just go in and I try my best to do that. I also do that with the snake and the little person. And then at this point, I decided that it was looking kind of plain, the foreground, so I decided to give the little grave robber a satchel, or a little bag, that he basically, like, he dropped when he encountered the snake and blah blah blah. So I get started on that, and I just draw a little bag shape, color it in with watercolor, and I do a little blue or red around the rim of the bag just to tie into the blue and red that's throughout the rest of it. And now on to assembly, and basically I had to assemble this in two parts because of that temple layer where it is like a big space. That would be six like layers of foam board deep, and I didn't want to do that right now. So I just did it in two separate parts, the background in one and then the foreground in another, and then at the end I glue them together. And if you pay attention, these layers, they look a little weird. No, or not weird, but you can see where I cut all the holes in the back to try to make it look like a light box, but I ended up giving up again because it just wasn't turning out. But those were my attempts, so that's why it looks like that. But yeah, here I am just assembling it, and it is finally done. I would rate it a 7 out of 10. I think it looks pretty good. I think it's cute. The design is overall pretty good, I'd say. The execution was decent. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't too great. It could have been a lot better. But I think for my first time trying to do something like this, it does look pretty decent. There are a couple things I don't like about it. Like, if you look at it from any angle except straight on, you will see that giant gaping gap between that temple layer and then the rest of it, which is kind of annoying, but overall I think it's pretty good. And I'm proud of myself for finishing it. Yeah, so here it is in all its glory, and thank you guys for watching. If anyone's interested in custom orders, just email me. I'll have the link in the description. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!